Okay, now let's continue with our part 3 topic.
In this case, you might wonder what is exactly a source code and what is a preprocessor, what is a compiler, and what is a linker. Example, if you're going to run a program in C++, the code or the grammar, the syntax that you are typing in your phone or in your computer, that is what you call the source code. And it will be processed in the preprocessor and will be forwarded to the compiler to analyze the code that you had written in your phone or in your PC. Then will verify in the linker, especially if you will be using some libraries, and it will check whether it is available or not. Then once it is being verified, that's the time that the compiler will try to execute your code. So what exactly a machine code? Okay, just like this, as you noticed here in the left side, there's the source code. So this is your phone, and this is the compiler. So the compiler will try to analyze what you have encoded in your phone and will compare it to the standard of the C++ programming languages, just like in an English grammar where there is there are rules to be followed, like the subject followed by a verb and then the predicate. Just like in programming, there are rules to be followed when it comes to running a program. Although, since the computer could not understand what you are typing, it will be converted into a machine code so the computer can understand. So what exactly machine code? It's actually like a binary conversion of zeros and one. Okay. So do you have question on this part? Well, you just have to review again on the module that I give you for you to be able to have a detailed understanding on this. Okay. Actually, in the C++, if we're going back to our previous slide, the preprocessor are the directives which give instructions to the compiler to pre-process the information before the actual compilation starts. The directives begin with hashtag, okay, or we call it as number. So the number of supported preprocessor directives are number include, number define, or hashtag F or hashtag else. Okay, there are many functions actually that can be used, and of course, including the line. So the number include is actually the most commonly used in all the examples. So the number define preprocessor creates a symbolic constant, which is the called a macro, and this is the general form of the directive, which is the use of hashtag or number define macro name, then replacement can replace it with text. So what exactly a compiler here? A compiler is a computer program that translates programs written in a high-level language into a machine code. Okay. And it also translates its high-level instructions into several machine code instruction all at once. Okay? How about the linker? So the linker combines the compiler-generated machine with precompiled library code or compiled code from the other sources to make a complete executable program. Most compiled C++ code is incapable of running by itself. It's clear. C++ code is incapable of running by itself, and it needs some additional machine code to make, again, to make a complete executable program. Okay. So the missing machine code has been precompiled and stored. So, and once it is stored in the repository, this is what we call the library. So a program called linker combines the programmer's compiled code and the library code to make a complete program. Okay, it's very clear. So a modern integrated development environment, or the IDE, such as the div, code blocks, etc., will incorporate the preprocessor, compiler, and the linker. Programmers recreate the compilation process with a single command, typically a single button press. So if you're using a mobile phone, you just have to tap, of course. And in my side, I'm using my mouse. So the modern IDE also includes a nice graphical user interface, a text editor for writing and editing source code, and a debugger to help locate logical and running time errors. So most of those features are also implemented as separate programs. Okay. So here, going back in our slide, the machine code is the term used to define any binary instruction which the computers or the CPU will read and execute. Okay, so its instructions perform a definite task, such as storing the value into a register, adding binary numbers together, or displaying the text as shown in our sample, which is, I actually write here, welcome to CS, what's our code? CS112. Okay, very clear? Okay, now let's try to compare the relationships between programs, compiler, interpreter, assembler. Here, a program, it says it is assembler, compiler, and interpreter are used to translate the assembly language and high-level language into a machine code. So C++ is actually a high-level language. So if we're going to compare this to compiler, so compiler translate the instructions in high-level language all at one time, while the interpreter, it will translate the instructions in high-level language one at a time. So there's a difference between the two. Compiler is all at one time, while interpreter is one at a time. And when it comes to assembler, so it translates the assembly language into a machine code. So from the word machine code, meaning the zeros and ones. So that's the only information that the computer can understand. Now let's go to the program structure. Here, this is the structure of this, how the C++, mostly of the programmers are using the comments. So the comments that is like a guide. Okay, you will be using here. Later, I will discuss what are the types of comments. And then on the second line, we have here the number include or the iOS stream. It refers to the compiler directive or the header file. The upgraded version of C++ nowadays is using the namespace std. So before the old version, you don't need to put it in the compiler directive or in the header part. But since we're using now the upgraded version, we will be always using namespace std as part of our header file. So we won't get any error. Now, in the next line, we have here the int main, open, close, parentheses. So this is what we call the main function. Okay, within the main function, there is an open and close braces. Okay, so what is inside this one? If we have the formula or something that needs to be declared, then we call this one as the variable declaration, and also the constant declaration if there's any. Next part is our instruction, whether we're going to display it, we're going to calculate it. So this is where we put our statement in our code. And the other part is the return 0. Okay, so it's always part of when you use the int main, then you have to include the return 0. Okay, so this is the typical C++ program structure. Okay, now let's talk about the type of C++ statements. And there are 3 categories, which is the input, output, and the operation. In the example, under the input, the command is actually sin or CIN. It means console input. And then there is a arrow right, double arrow right. So it refers to accept something. Okay. So here, where we have here the statement, and for the output, we will be using the cout or console out statement. Okay. Aside from the input and output, we had also the mathematical operation, which is under the operation. Of course, it includes addition, multiplication, etc. Okay, so is it clear now?